Hey everyone, thank you for joining in on this webinar here in real estate properties to raw land in an SDIRA. I'm accompanied here by Jack, my associate, and we just want to go right into this here and kind of go over the beginning. Let me share my screen quickly just so you guys can see the webinar. Perfect. Okay, so let's go over the agenda really quick. We'll talk about why IRA Financial, what a self-directed IRA is, real estate in the self-directed IRA, the types of investments you can make, few tax considerations, and a little bit about traditional Roth. And we'll go over some case studies because we both work with clients directly, and we'll be able to really go into details of what clients experience, how everything evolves, and we'll just give you the ins and outs. So just a little bit about myself here. I'm the senior new account specialist. I've been working here for about 3 years. My name is Casper Dabek, and I was actually on the last webinar with Adam. Adam could not make it in today this time, but instead we decided to bring on Jack, my colleague. I'll let him introduce himself quickly.
Hi, nice to meet everyone. I'm Jack here at IRA Financial. I'm a new account specialist just with Casper. So we help clients every day to make sure that whatever account structure they get started in is the right structure for their retirement goals. We'll cover a few here today, all ranging within the real estate world, as that is one of the most common investment types that we see here at IRA Financial.
That's right. So just a little brief, why IRA Financial? So IRA Financial was founded by Adam Bergman. He is a tax attorney, and a ERISA specialist as well. He's worked in some of the largest law firms in the world. And he, was working with a client who wanted to do alternative investing with his retirement. And as a tax attorney, he really read into the codes and he discovered, hey, why are, more people not doing this? Why is it not an option? And that's where he really decided, hey, let's move forward. Let's empower people with their retirement account. Let's show them what they can do. And since 2010, we have 3.9 billion assets in management, over 24,000 clients, all 50 states. And the nice little key point here is that we have 97% retention rate. So 97% of our clients stay with IRA Financial. All right, Jack, I'll let you kind of touch on what a self-directed IRA is.
So yeah, to start off with the basics of what a self-directed IRA is. So at the root of it, it is just your basic IRA account. So you have your traditional IRAs, your Roth IRAs, SEP, Simple, etc. The self-directed is really just a function of what the IRA account can do. So self-directed, you can kind of get it out of the name, but you're directing all of your retirement. So if you want to be investing into real estate, you can do that through our platform. They will all be tied to your own individual social security numbers, so they still function. You can't necessarily combine both IRAs into one IRA. There are kind of some creative strategies that we'll go over later in the webinar as well that will show there are methods that you can do that, but you have to get an LLC involved. We simply just administer those IRA accounts and help you get invested into what you would like to invest into. So this is kind of more of what I was talking about with the different types of accounts. So we have the custodian controlled account, where you can think of that as IRA Financial kind of just being the middleman for all of your investments. You would submit forms to our online website, which then our investments team would grab those forms, process them out to your own individual investments, and everything would come to and from us here at IRA Financial. With that checkbook controlled account, that will allow you to open up a checking account at like your local bank, an online bank, and it really gives you that control over your investment. Generally speaking, we see these most of the time with kind of higher frequency transactions. So like your Airbnbs, maybe some vacation rentals, things like that, some commercial real estate as well. And it's really beneficial for real estate investors just because you can act on things very quickly. If you have a bill you need to pay, you can just cut the check right out of that checking account, and you don't have to worry about that timing of the middleman.
Yeah, so why real estate in a self-directed IRA? There's several benefits, and if it makes sense for you, it could be very powerful, of course. The tax advantage growth is something that you could really look into. When you are maybe into real estate, you want to get into real estate, you can think about the income and the gains and how that really flows. Let's say you have a property and you sell it, the income off that, the capital gains will go right back into your retirement account, either tax-free or tax deferred. So that's the really big benefit here, of course. You're not paying those taxes. You're not having to worry about, whether or not you made this income or not. It's all tax advantage, which is beautiful here. Diversification, of course, is also key. When you're looking into the real estate market, maybe don't believe in the stock market right now. You don't have that confidence. Previously, lately in the last 3 months or so, I'm sure you've heard this too with some clients, a lot of uncertainty in the stock market, right? So real estate could be another option that you want to dive into and really, put your retirement somewhere that you can touch and feel and have that kind of ownership over, which kind of goes into the control. You get to choose what to invest in, what asset, you get to choose what to do with it, whether it is a fix and flip, an Airbnb, maybe you're just buying some land and letting it accrue and, you plan to sell it off one day for a huge payout. So it's definitely diverse in not only the asset type, but the amount of income or the types of income you can get from it. And that could lead to some pretty steady cash flow for you, whether it is just rental income, you bought a property, you're renting it out, and now you're just sitting there collecting some rental income, not a problem. That's all doable within an SDIRA. Some rules and regulations, of course. So it seems like, hey, pretty broad, you can do this, but what can't you do? There's a few things that the IRS does not want you to do, and it's mainly with disqualified persons, right? So a disqualified person is yourself, your spouse, and a direct family in your lineage. It's an IRS code 4975. It just defines who you can transact with. So for example, let's say you are the IRA owner and you want to purchase a property that cannot be your primary residence. You can't self-benefit. Or let's say you have a daughter or son and you're buying a property, you can't let them rent it out. You can't transact with those people in a way that benefits the IRA, that benefits you instead of the IRA. So it's really in place there just to keep you on track, make sure that, you're doing this as an investment property. You're not sitting there, you're not, visiting relatives there and all this stuff. It's there just to make sure your retirement grows. So that's, no personal use of the property and no sweat equity or working on the property yourself. Just to go into that a little bit, if you are pretty hands-on and, you want to do some work, you're a developer, maybe you're renting and something goes wrong. The IRS doesn't want you to go in there and fix it yourself. That's also kind of self-benefiting. You need to hire somebody else, for example, to take care of that and work for you. So, when a lot of clients, they go ahead and, purchase rental properties, they are pretty hands-on and they want to go ahead and do the work themselves. That's just one thing to watch out for, is make sure you're not putting in that sweat equity. So yeah, how we see these things really be triggered is like, for example, holding the title incorrectly. Let's say you did use IRA funds to purchase the property, but then you have yourself listed as the owner of the property, like your own personal name. That's a little bit of discrepancy. You want to make sure that the money aligns, the IRA is titled into the property here, and the custodian will help you. So we will help you make sure that you are following the right steps. Commingling personal funds, that's the same thing as like transacting with yourself. Let's say you bought a property and then out of your own checking account or use your own credit card to pay somebody else to do expenses for you. Everything has to stay IRA owned. All IRA assets, income, expenses, the cash flow has to be from the IRA, which also leads to not budgeting for any expenses. If you have a rental property and you're running out of IRA funds, you don't want to use your own personal funds to cover for that. You just want to make sure you can either do a rollover from another account or do a contribution, any other option than commingling your personal funds. So definitely just want to make sure it's a good property that has some good, fair market valuation. So when you're doing the property value, you want to make sure you get that done right, the diligence, the location, so you can market it and you can increase that valuation as well. So when you do sell or do anything with it, you get some gains. Jack, so I'll let you kind of go over the types of real estate investments. You work very closely with real estate, investors, agents. So I'll let you touch base a little bit on what kind of, asset classes are within real estate itself.
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, here at the beginning, real estate is one of our most common investment types. And I think really that is broken down kind of into three of these main sectors. So you're going to have the single and multifamily rentals. Those are the ones that you see a lot of the fix and flips, and you also see Airbnbs, VRBOs, kind of that world of investing. That's all in that single and multifamily rentals. And that is one of the, I would say, largest investments that we have, is just those single and multifamily rentals. Raw land, that is something that's really picking up here recently, especially with farmers in this industry, because you can actually buy this raw land as long as it's not a disqualified party. You can rent that land out. So if you have a neighbor and there's farmland available, you can buy that farmland, rent it out to that farmer, and it's a great investment. You obviously, being a farmer, you know how valuable farmland is. They're not making any more of it. And you can use this investment as a long-term hold in a tax deferred or tax-free account, depending if that's traditional or Roth. And then when we get a little bit more advanced, this is kind of the higher asset values. That's when we kind of go more into the commercial real estate. So with COVID and everything like that, there's a lot of commercial real estate available here in the US. And so that investing is really starting to pick up with more and more people going back to the workplace. Commercial real estate, renovating that real estate and getting that cash flowing is a really, really big advantage in that self-directed IRA account. I would say that with the single family kind of VRBO, Airbnb situation, and the commercial properties, just as both of them are going to have larger amounts of transactions, those would be great vehicles for that self-directed IRA LLC. Something like the raw land, where it's going to be a long-term hold, maybe just a property tax payment or some rent payments throughout the course of the year, that would be something that would be great for that custodial controlled structure. So then we kind of get into what comes out of many of these direct real estate investments. And that's where you get the real estate crowdfunding or syndications. Another thing that would be great for that custodial controlled structure. So you would find a real estate development company, you would get a subscription agreement with them, you would submit that to our online website, we would send that out to that syndication or that crowdfunding company. And then at the end of your investment period, they would send the funds back to us. It would be your choice to then reinvest those into another deal, move them out, or to a different asset type. Maybe you wanted to go into real property and you would add the LLC at this point. That kind of then goes into the tax liens and deeds, or some of these kind of property auctions. Again, these are a great structure for that LLC, because with the tax liens and deeds, a lot of the time, you're going to be needing to act quickly, 24, 48-hour payments, things like that. But tax deeds and liens can be a great way of getting properties into your IRA at a much reduced cost. And then lastly, the fix and flips. Again, it's a great vehicle for that self-directed IRA LLC. Generally, if you have any sort of contracting background, development background, this is right in your wheelhouse. You can buy that raw land, you can pay contractors to put that property on the land. You could even develop a whole block. I've worked with a client a few weeks ago that found an area, was able to develop the whole block, and that's his retirement. He just wanted to get out of the market, put it in somewhere that, he knows that industry. He was a developer himself, and he just feels a lot more comfort, and he feels confident in his retirement now. And that's really what we want, to allow all of us and clients to have, is that confidence.
Yeah, whole block.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are tax considerations when using a self-directed IRA, and we'll go over that here over the treatment, the differences between using a traditional IRA and a Roth, and then we'll also touch on UBIT and UDFI. So first one here is income. Like I was saying earlier, when you are investing in a self-directed IRA and real estate is your asset type, how does the income flow? What happens to it? The income earned will have to go directly from the real estate property into the IRA or into the IRA LLC, depending on the structure that you have. So when you do the real estate investment, what you do with, let's just focus on the custodian controlled IRA, you work with our full service team. They will help you with signing the documents, making sure the deed's done correctly, everything is processed right. And then we'll have an account here for you that the wiring information, the ACH check writing info. And that's where, let's say, rental income, your tenants can send a wire or a check directly into that account, and we'll process that out for you. If you have an expense, then you can give us a notice here. Do you want to have an expense payment request? And we will send that out. So you'll be working very closely with our full service team. They're here to take care of you and make sure that all your needs are met. And if you do decide to be more hands-on and go with the checkbook controlled option, the LLC that Jack was referring to, everything now is treated as the LLC making the investment. So the property itself will be in the LLC's name. You are the manager. You can sign off on it. You can go ahead and tell your tenants to wire directly into the LLC checking account. It all flows with that LLC, any cash flow, any expenses. It's really like your cash flow account, any kind of gains, expenses, all from that LLC checking account. That is important. You just want to make sure that bookkeeping is done right. So then, it's not taxed, just, quickly saying that it is still tax advantage. If you are using a traditional IRA, it is deferred, meaning that you will have to pay taxes later on upon distribution, but a Roth, you are completely tax-free. You do not have to worry about it. There is something I want to touch on with the Roth where, some clients like, to take the properties out in kind. You can do that as a distribution. What you can do is, evaluate the property and do an in-kind distribution, send in a request for us, and we will process that out, issue a 1099-R, and you will be able to put that from the LLC's name or the IRA's name into your name and now have the property in there. I just always like to say that strategy. I've seen some clients that, invest in real estate and they think, oh, it's stuck there now. You still have options to get it out and then use it for personal use if you ever need to. If that time ever does come, it's an exit strategy. There are different kind of exit strategies that you can go into, whether you sell the property and the gains go back into the IRA, or you want to take that in-kind distribution and you want to take it for your personal use. A little bit on the traditional Roth, just to go deeper into that. So yeah, the contributions for the traditional, they are deductible. It's pre-tax. So that's, the main tax status of a traditional IRA. Withdrawals do start at 73. So you do have to start taking those minimum distributions. IRS wants their money. So that's when, you can either take money out of the IRA or maybe you do have a property. What we've seen clients do is if they are pretty illiquid and they still need to meet that RMD amount, they'll evaluate the property and, for example, let's say they need a $10,000 RMD. The percentage of ownership of that property that's equal to $10,000, they will then distribute to themselves and have their own personal ownership. So it is doable. We have seen it happen in a case where you need that RMD met and there are different circumstances. You might not have that cash available. Give us a call. We can run that scenario with you, see if it makes sense and kind of go deeper into that as well. So it is good for a lower tax bracket when you're older because traditional IRA distributions, they are ordinary income tax. So what your currently income tax bracket is, whether it's, 22%, 24%, that's what would be taxed when we take a distribution. Going into Roth, very powerful tool, I believe. It's all post-tax. So the Roth, all the money is already paid for, the taxes are paid for. You either contributed to a Roth directly or you did like a conversion into the Roth and paid your taxes that way for it. So the nice part there is any income is fully tax-free. You can take distributions on qualified expenses, qualified distributions without incurring those tax kind of liabilities. And if you were to take a property out, with that Roth account, you wouldn't have any taxable event either. It's just directly moving from the IRA into yourself personally, which is nice. You can really work with a very nice exit strategy if you use the Roth IRA. And I have seen clients do in the past. Pretty brilliant if you ask me. UBIT and UDFI. So we're always talking about the tax advantage of an IRA. There's only really one circumstance that will trigger UBIT, an additional tax. It stands for unrelated business income tax. When you're using an IRA and you don't have enough cash flow inside the IRA to maybe purchase a property and you want to end up taking out like a loan, it has to be a non-recourse loan, meaning the property is put up for collateral. You do not personally guarantee it. You take out this loan, that leveraged amount will trigger this tax because it's no longer the IRA's money. It is now the bank's money. So what happens on that tax and how to calculate it is based on the debt ratio. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I have a property worth $100,000. I have $50,000 in my SDIRA and I'm missing the extra 50K. I go to a non-recourse lender. I take out a loan for $50,000. What that's saying is now 50%, basically the bank's money would be subject to that unrelated business income tax versus the IRA's money. So of that income, 50% is taxed and the tax can get pretty high. It does get up to 37%. So it's definitely something to think about if you are planning to use some leveraging. There are ways around it. I would say if you are self-employed, it's a different plan that we offer. It's a solo 401k, where it actually has an exemption in the IRS codes against the unrelated business income tax. So other ways to avoid it is that you could always look for other kind of partners. You can try and restructure the deal. We also have an option with a corporation. It's called a C block, where the corporate tax itself, the 21% corporate tax, completely just, it blocks the UBIT tax rate, but you will have 21% corporate tax to pay. So UBIT, I mean, it is triggered. It's not always triggered. It's not, common, but if you are using leveraging, there's a chance that you will have that kind of tax rate. Give us a call, run the scenario through us, make sure that we're looking at all the possible options that how we can maybe avoid it or minimize it. Give us just a call on this one because it is pretty subjective onto, what kind of income you're getting, whether it's active or passive, because some passive income is also exempt. So this one is pretty, nitty gritty, you could say. But if there is any UBIT, one service that we do offer is filing the form 990T, which pretty hard for them to find a CPA to do. Some CPAs don't know how to do it. We have specialists here on staff that can do that for you, no problem. We'll give you everything, all the consultation. Just, make sure you work with us so we can help you best.
And I would just have one note on that 990T filing that Casper mentioned there. I was working with the client here at the year end. They've had a tax professional that they've been going to for, the last 30 years, as, many people usually do have. And so they just, they told me we're going to opt out of that service to file that 990T. Our tax professional is going to take care of it. And it's just that self-directed IRAs are so niche sometimes that filings like that 990T aren't common to even the 30-year-long accountant. So that accountant specifically had to go get legal advice. The client ended up being charged over $5,000 for this one form to be filed. And I can tell you that we would do that for $299 annually. So if you ever are in that situation where you feel like there is a, UBIT or UDFI that's going to be generated, you need us to help calculate it on that 990T. We have great resources available to you. We can offer it for such a competitive rate because we are a volume business. We have people that do this all day, every day. So I just wanted to make it known that we offer that service. It's a really great benefit of just having an account here at IRA Financial.
Yeah, so you can definitely give us a call here, just to go over all those benefits, but also just to touch further on that, it's also important to work with the right custodian. Choosing IRA Financial, we have that expertise. Like Jack was saying, we do this all day, every day. We know your situation, bringing it to us, we know how to help you. We're all trained here directly by Adam Bergman. We know exactly the tax codes, the, right process flow. We know how to structure you to get you in the right account to begin with, what you should be aware of when you're making your investment. We're here to give you that consultation, the confidence to move forward. And we don't want to, overcharge you like some CPAs might. We're here to give you what you need to be successful with your retirement account. And that's what is really crucial. The support, the ongoing education that we can provide you, just having the custodian that you don't have to worry about, no headaches, no stress. That's what we're here for. So definitely ready to help. Give us a call. I think we'll probably touch on some case studies here. Jack, I'll let you tackle this one.
Okay, perfect. So we have Maria, a 60-year-old administrator from New Mexico. She opened a self-directed IRA with IRA Financial 3 years ago. She used her account to purchase a single-family rental property that's in a growing suburb outside of Albuquerque. Since then, Maria has generated consistent tax-deferred rental income, which goes directly back into her self-directed IRA. There was no financing involved. She avoids UDFI and enjoys her peace of mind knowing her investment is fully under control and growing steadily for retirement. So this scenario, a single family rental property, you maybe have just a long-term tenant in there, kind of a turnkey property, so it doesn't need too much upkeep. That is a perfect situation to have that custodial controlled self-directed IRA account. You don't have to worry about, the speed of transactions. The tenants would be paying us directly here at IRA Financial. It would all be going into the account tax deferred. Since all of the payments are coming to and from us, it really helps on the bookkeeping side of things. You don't have to worry about, tracking this transaction and tracking that transaction. We will all have it tracked here for you, and then we will put them in consolidated reports at the end of the year that you can just go simply download using your online portal, and you can take those to your personal tax professional to help on your personal taxes as well. But this situation specifically, really the key things that make it a great option for that custodial controlled account is that, it's a low transaction property. It's just one property, and it's all cash. So you don't have to worry about that UBIT or UDFI financing aspect of things. If this would have been a situation where maybe Maria was doing 3 properties, it would make more sense to then have that LLC because you're going to have much more transactions. And really, if you really feel comfortable using an online portal, you could operate, multiple properties using a custodial controlled account. It's just generally speaking, a lot of people that are doing multiple real estate properties either have real estate properties outside of their self-directed IRA or have some sort of experience in that real estate world already to start. So just to keep everything familiar to them, they're obviously used to running a checkbook account, collecting all the rental income, everything of that nature. So that's just why in those situations we would push towards that LLC structure.
Absolutely. I'll touch on this one. So private fund investment with a custodian controlled account as well. Jamal, 57-year-old engineer from Illinois, was looking to diversify beyond traditional markets and tapped into a self-directed IRA with IRA Financial to invest in a private real estate syndication. Using a custodian controlled self-directed IRA, Jamal reviewed the official documents, submitted them for a compliance review, and funded the investment directly through his IRA account. He now receives quarterly distributions from the multifamily fund, which flow back into the SDIRA tax deferred. Jamal appreciates the oversight and simplicity of custodian control while accessing high quality private market deals. So with this one right here, I mean, we see this all the time, whether it's a REIT, a private fund, syndication, going into these kind of investments, we do several times, and it's very popular for these reasons because it's passive. You let the fund manage everything, you get to choose maybe what fund, but then working with the custodian team, we dot the I's, cross the T's. We pretty much make sure everything is kosher for IRS regulations. We do the investment authorization with you. We sign off on the documents. In this scenario, a lot of clients like to have that kind of custodian backup where they know that they're processing an investment and it's been done correctly, it's been audited. So that's the nice benefit of that custodian control. And choosing, real estate funds or other kind of private investments, I would say probably the most popular option is the custodian control because of that low maintenance. You don't have to worry about, constant, checks or constant expenses. The most maybe you have to do is like a capital call here and there and add in some more cash or maybe reinvest into the fund. It's very low maintenance. So that's why custodian control tends to be the more popular option for that, asset class.
And I would just say, we have been talking kind of the custodian control, the checkbook control, kind of the differences between the two. But one thing that we haven't necessarily covered is how IRA financials, custodial controlled accounts differ from competitors in the industry. So we charge a flat rate. We don't charge any transaction fees. We don't charge any fees for consultations and giving us a call. We want to make this as simple and efficient as possible for you to make these alternative investments. Whereas if you look at many other competitors, you have asset value based fees, you have transaction fees, you have different asset fees. We don't charge any of that. So just speaking on Casper's point of the simplicity and that backup that you would have as the custodial controlled account, I just wanted to make it clear that, you won't be paying any extra for that service. That is just something that we offer complimentary to all of our clients to make sure that they have the best self-directed experience possible.
Yeah, I mean, just to go even deeper into that, I have some clients that, call me from a different custodian and they're like, hey, this custodian couldn't tell me if this is a good deal or not. Like I'm worried it's prohibited. All that they gave the client was here, refer to section 4975 and figure that out. So what we can do is, we have a compliance team. We're here to assist. We go deeper into it. That's the benefit of being, owned and operated by a tax attorney. We know the codes better than anybody else out there. We can analyze that. We do it all day. So like Jack was saying, you get something very special with us for the right amount. It's definitely amazing if you take advantage of it. So just last case study here. I'll let you go ahead and get into this one as well.
Okay, perfect. So Ellie, a 42-year-old small business owner in Florida, chose to open a self-directed IRA LLC with checkbook control to fund real estate projects through her self-directed Roth IRA. With signing full authority to her LLC's dedicated bank account, she purchased a fixer-upper in Tampa, managed contractors, and oversaw the renovation herself. Once the home was sold for a profit, the proceeds flowed back into her Roth IRA, completely tax-free. Elaine values the speed and autonomy checkbook control gives her, especially when jumping on time-sensitive real estate opportunities. So this is exactly what we were kind of touching on earlier here in the phone or in the webinar about kind of that speed of transactions and the frequency of those transactions. So obviously with the fixer upper, you're going to have to either, repair the roof or paint the house or clean it up, do whatever. And you can't have any of that sweat equity in the property. So you have to hire contractors to do all of this work. It's a lot more efficient if you can just find the contractor and pay them right away using that checkbook controlled structure. Whereas with the custodian controlled structure, you would find the contractor, you would upload the invoice, and we would then get that paid. So it's just kind of one step that's removed from the process. And as with contractors, you're going to have many of these payments. So, if you take one step out every time, you may be saving 20 steps throughout the process. Well, you still get to keep everything tax deferred or tax free, depending if it's traditional or Roth. In this case, it's a Roth. So she's able to grow that retirement portfolio all tax free. She could have used the money from that flip, turn around, buy another fixer upper, use the same exact contractor she used for the first deal, and it's kind of a rinse and repeat process. So I think this is a really great example of just showing, kind of how complex some of these deals can get. Some of them are very cookie cutter. This one is a little bit more complex, and there's ones that are even way more complex than this. But I just want everyone to know that even with a situation like this, and the checkbook control, if you're worried about paying a contractor is going to be prohibited, or if it makes more sense to do this in a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA or anything of that nature, certainly give us a call. We can walk through the situation with you, because there can be some very subtle differences between each person's case by case situation, and that may mean a different structure for you in that case. So definitely give us a call. We would love to walk through the whole situation with you, and put you down that right path for your self-directed retirement.
Right, and just like you were saying too, we can, you're hearing custodian control, checkbook control, and you're like, I don't know which one's best for myself. That's what Jack and I are here for. We do this every single day. We help clients directly in your position just to make sure we get you in the right structure and you know how to operate and use that structure. So that's exactly the kind of consultation we can provide. You have something similar, you're looking at a property, you don't know, maybe you want custodian control, maybe you want the checkbook control. We can help you analyze that. We can tell you, well, let's look at this. How much volume are you looking at? Let's see what's your end goal, how many assets you plan. Different questions that we can ask you that helps, make the decision for you. Yeah, so getting started, that's also what we're here for, is to ensure that we get you on the right path and get you set up properly. We have an online portal for everything here. It's all online. We have an app. Work with us, talk to us first if you'd like to have a consultation. Either one of us would be happy to help, and then we can guide you on the website, guide you onto our app, and make sure that you fill out the application correctly, answer any questions on there, and we'll get back to you here pretty soon. We have a whole department that specializes in just reviewing everything, making sure it's good, we have what we need, and then we will reach out to you with an account number. So that's your first step. Once that account number is generated, you can now fund your IRA, whether that's doing a contribution, a rollover. We'll then, give you the account number, the steps you need, and you can start investing once your account is funded. Do you have any kind of comments on that? Any kind of tips for the clients being onboarded?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that we always get on these phone calls once we have the structure set up, then kind of the next big, road stop would be, how complex this whole self-directed concept is. And we're just here to really show you how simple the entire process can be. It's really a 10-minute application online. We then help you get everything funded, and then all you have to do is supply us with the investment deal. So it's really those three main steps of just the online application, getting that account funded, and then helping you make your investment. And we're here to kind of help you through all those little complexities along the way. Whereas some of these other custodians, they're going to just give you the account number and say, here you go, make your investment. And the most common question you're going to get from that is, well, how do I do that? And so that's exactly what Casper and I are here for, and our whole team here in Sioux Falls. We help you through that entire journey and make it as simple as possible for you.
Yeah. Choosing custodians, you want that ongoing support, right? If you get calls from clients and they're like, hey, I don't know what's going on, I haven't heard from these guys, they're not answering my questions. We're here to change that kind of perception of what a custodian is. We're here to guide you every single step of the way, exactly like Jack said. So give us a call on that as well. We're here to flow you pretty smoothly. Yeah. So I think that just goes into the questions. So we'll be checking the feed here. Definitely put in any questions. Let me see if we have some in already. Jack, I got a good one for you. So the question is, how do I decide between a custodian controlled and a checkbook controlled self-directed IRA for real estate?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I would say that's one of the most common questions that we get. So just kind of going back to those case studies, what we talked about earlier on the webinar, is it really comes down to what your end goal is. So if you really just see one property, you really want that property and you just want that one thing to be your retirement vehicle, then that's something that maybe the custodian controlled makes sense. You have a lower volume, you have a property that's not going to need too much upkeep, you might have a long-term tenant in there, all of those great things for a custodial controlled structure. Whereas something like an LLC, that would be like that developer situation where you buy the raw land, you put the property on there, you're paying all these contractors. I think it also comes down to kind of what your overall picture is. Are you really just looking at this one real estate investment? Or are you looking to do real estate and crypto and gold and all of the other possibilities that you can do in self-directed retirement accounts? So, unfortunately, I don't think I have a concrete answer of, how you should select one structure over another. I think it is a case by case basis, and that's why you guys should give us a call so that we can go through all of this with you. But if you're trying to just make a situation for yourself, the main things I would look at is that transaction volume, the diversity of those assets you're looking to get into, and then the speed in which you're going to be needing to make those investments.
Mm-hmm. And that's also a key thing is so subjective. There's not a wrong or right answer to this. It's whatever makes sense for you and your situation. And also, I guess you could always just begin with the self-directed IRA without the LLC. And if you find yourself being more hands-on than you initially anticipated, we can add that LLC on later as well. So there are options. Yeah, there are options, and you can just, maybe you just want to begin and just get started. We can work with you on that too and build out your retirement structure as you go. Let's see what else we got here. All right, so here's a good question. If I want to flip properties using my self-directed IRA, how do I stay compliant with the no sweat equity rule? So I'll kind of dive into that one since I covered on the regulation side. Really, the sweat equity just means that you're not doing things yourself. You're not the one doing the fixing, flipping. You're not going on the site and, screwing things in or, painting the house, the property. You just want to show a clear money trail that you did hire somebody, you have expenses, you can allocate where your money trail has been and what the work has been, by those people. You don't want to, obviously it's not like the IRS is out there parked outside your driveway looking at the house, but just follow the proper rules and you have nothing to worry about. Don't do things yourself. Keep yourself as passive as possible and you will not have an issue with the sweat equity. Okay. Let's go with Jack. This one's going to be a good one. Is it possible to invest in out-of-state real estate through self-directed IRA? What are the challenges with doing so?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Like Casper mentioned, we can operate all over the US. There's no state limitation. But when you are looking at investing in real estate in those different states, it is state by state requirements. So specifically when you're using the LLCs, so if it's a state like Florida or California or New York, where you need to do business in that state, that state agency will make you register your LLC as a foreign entity in that state where you're going to be conducting your business. And we can help you do all of that as well. But in short, you can buy properties all over the US. You're not bound by any state limitations. But in doing so, with some specific states, there are some more regulatory filings that need to be done. And we can help you with all of those complexities here at IRA Financial. It's just kind of how we keep saying it is a case by case basis, as most things are, in this industry. So if you do, have a really interesting situation where you're looking at buying a property on the other side of the US, whether that be for a vacation property or it's just a really good investment opportunity, that's where you would give us a call. We would walk through everything and get you down the right path.
Yeah, so just to kind of bounce back off, you did mention, and somebody did ask, you can buy an investment property outside of the US.
That is correct.
Right, so that is still an option. You just want to make sure to deal with their policies and regulations that they may have, whether it's, their LLC requirements or anything else. It is doable and it's not a problem. We have several clients doing international investments for real estate. Let's see. What amount in the account do you need to get started, and what are the options to fund the account? So really getting started, it can be any amount that you feel comfortable with. You don't have to do a full rollover from your 401k or IRA. It could be a partial amount, whether that's like 25k, 50k, even 10k, whatever makes sense for your investment decision. We don't have any requirements ourselves for any like minimums, and you really can choose to roll over how much you desire. And to fund the account, you do have that rollover from a different retirement account, whether that's like an IRA, a 401k, 457, any qualified plan. Or you could also do a contribution, and we can help you with the contribution amounts, whether that's like an IRA, you have $7,000 or 8,000 if you're over 50 for the year. So there are ways to fund the account, but the most common, of course, are the rollovers, transfers, and the contributions.
And I would just piggyback off of that quickly. And to say that even if you are interested in real estate investing, but don't quite have that dollar amount yet in your IRA or retirement accounts, that's where something like those real estate syndications, the tax liens and deeds, kind of some of those lower valuation real estate instruments that you can invest into become more beneficial. So we've seen clients start with real estate syndications, do 2 or 3 deals there, get their money back over a 5-6 year period. And then at that point, then they can transition from that custodial control to the
Right.
LLC and do some of that more hands-on real estate. So even if you don't have enough to get started, at the when you start funding your account, we can put you in a vehicle that then would allow you to grow to a point where then you can finally get your end goal of owning that real property. That's why we say when you're on the call with us, we want you to outline both your short-term and your long-term goals with that account structure, so that we can make sure that you're satisfied now. And then also when you call us in 10, 15, 20 years, whatever that may be, you can feel like you had a clear plan for going all the way through your retirement process.
Perfect, yeah. I'll have a question for you here, Jack. So I believe this is a pretty good one. Can you sell a property from your traditional IRA to your Roth IRA? If yes, can you sell it for less than the original purchase price?
That is a very good question. So it wouldn't technically be a sale of the property from your traditional to your Roth IRA, but what we would call that is a Roth conversion. So Casper briefly touched on it earlier, how when you're at RMD age, if you have no other cash, we can distribute, shares of the property in kind. This Roth conversion process is the same concept. So let's say that you bought a $250,000 property, and you wanted to convert $5,000 per year, to the Roth. Then you would value that property, you would transition that ownership from traditional to Roth, and then all that future cash flow would be split up pro rata. So let's say, after the end of your first year doing it, it's 90% traditional, 10% Roth. Then that money would be allocated accordingly to both the traditional and those Roth IRA accounts. I would add on that point, generally, I see this with clients, when you're starting to near that retirement age and you want to still have that cash flow and not worry about those RMDs. So then that's where you might talk to a CPA or a tax attorney as well, and you can come up with a 5 to 10 year Roth conversion schedule. So then you would do X amount of Roth conversion year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and then by the time you are at your RMD age, everything would be in that Roth IRA, so you don't have to worry about taking the RMDs. You can live off of that tax-free cash flow for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and just to also touch on that, you did ask if you could do it for like a lower price. That would, anytime you do a traditional to Roth, it has to be a fair market value. Of course, there are ways to get a lower valuation for the property, but that's, more technical, and maybe it's like loss of marketability or anything else that could impact the valuation to then do the conversion. So if you know that your property may be at a lower value than normal, it could be a good idea to, start doing that Roth conversion to pay as little tax as possible.
I would say on kind of that discounted property,
Yeah.
that then would be converted. That would be another great situation to give us a call, as that is a more complex topic that, a longer conversation with your individual case would be more beneficial.
Yes, and partial Roths can also be done. I do see a question here, just to, touch on that while we're on the subject. You could partially roll it over, just like you said,
Yep.
in increments as you need.
Yep.
Let's see,
Do
so
the one up. Can spouses
partner their IRAs together to buy a property? Yes, so the spouses can partner together, make sure it's an IRA as well. We can do both, you can have an IRA, the spouse can have an IRA, and you can use both IRAs to co-invest. That's also a good subject to bring up, a multi-member LLC. Each IRA would be considered their own member of one LLC, so now it's, multiple members, a partnership between the two IRAs, and you can co-invest into the one LLC and then buy the property that way. So there are different options, as long as if it's all IRA, you have no worries about disqualified people. Of course, now if you're speaking with just your spouse's funds, non-retirement, and you have a retirement account, now that may be more difficult because technically your spouse is a disqualified person under IRS code 4975. So things to watch out for. Give us a call on that as well, and see if maybe you have different ideas, or we can run some things with you about ownership percentages, what could possibly work. So definitely give us a call on that one as well.
I would say just one further point on there. Yes, you can combine your funds into that LLC that Casper mentioned for that multi-member LLC to do your investment. But there would be no way to combine both of those IRA accounts just into one IRA account. We get that question a lot. The IRAs are tied to your own individual social security number, so we cannot mesh those two together. But if we have two different IRAs with their own individual security numbers, then we can put them into that one LLC structure and do the investments that way. There will also be a 1065 filing that is required with those multi-member LLCs. That is included in that same service that offers that 990T filing. So if you ever get kind of into those more complex tax situations with those self-directed IRA LLCs, that tax service is there for you, and I would strongly recommend taking a look at that if you are in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, even from personal experience, I have a partnership LLC and tried filing it myself before, a compliance service, and it cost me $400-500 just to do it myself on TurboTax. So I would definitely save the time on that and the money, and we can do the 1065 no problem. We got to get through some more questions here. So for control checking self-directed IRA, how is the best way to keep track of income, outgoing expenses? Do you have softwares like QuickBooks that you recommend?
Yeah, so that's another really good question. And I think ultimately it's a person by person basis. So we see people use something like QuickBooks. We see other people just use Excel sheets. We see other people just report every transaction to us, and we have kind of the bookkeeping on our end. So really at the end of the day, it's going to be however you feel like you can most effectively manage your account. If that is kind of with more assistance and you need us to be kind of keeping track of everything here on our side of things, we can certainly do that. You would just supply us with that documentation. It is worth noting that we wouldn't do anything with your personal taxes. This is just all IRA specific. So if it's your IRA LLC or your custodial controlled account, we can definitely assist in that area. But ultimately, to answer that question, I think it's very subjective. If you're comfortable with the software like QuickBooks or anything like that, I would just really recommend you use what you're comfortable with. Because that's obviously where you're going to be the most efficient and track things the most accurate way possible.
100%, exactly. Next question here. You mentioned the money you put back into the IRA is tax-free or tax deferred. What about if you make more profit? Are you taxed on that too? So this one, that's capital gains. You're not taxed on that. Any gains you get back, whether it's from the sale of the property, rental income, Airbnb, quarterly distributions, it's not taxable. It's going right back into that IRA for you. So very good question there as well. What are top 3 screw ups you see with checkbook controlled accounts? I'll touch on that one a little bit as well. So what we see, I would say one is not proper money flow coordination. You either have the IRA LLC, own the property, but then you personally use your own cash to cover any expenses. So that's a pretty big screw up. You want to make sure to keep the two separate from each other. Another one is not having actually the right title itself as well. Some clients just go ahead and use the LLC funds, but then have the title in their name. So those two are very commonly kind of commingled, but very common mistakes that we see. And then also with the LLC is taking distributions from the LLC instead of taking distributions from the IRA. So what I mean by that is, you get some rental income and it goes into your LLC checking account. Then you just take money out of it for your own personal interest, thinking, hey, it's a distribution. You have to go through the proper channels. So you then have to send money back from the LLC into the IRA. We'll file a 1099-R to show that distribution, and then it gets sent to you. So don't want to skip too many things. You got to remember the LLC, it's really like an asset held by the IRA. So everything still is IRA owned. Now, this is a pretty in-depth one here. So currently have a custodian controlled LLC and looking at a private syndication subscription agreement. Does the subscription agreement need to simply show the account holder's name, John Doe, or does the subscription agreement need to show IRA Financial Trust Company, CFBO, John Doe? So if you are going with an LLC, I think you might have meant checkbook controlled LLC. The syndication needs to be in the LLC's name. The overall, how the flow works with an IRA LLC, the IRA invests into the LLC, and in the operating agreement, really it's the whole bread and butter of the LLC, how it's compliant. That's when there's the full name IRA Financial Trust Company, CFBO, John Doe. That's the IRA investing into the LLC, owning the LLC 100%.
Yep.
So then anything that the LLC invests into, it stays IRA owned, but it's all in the LLC name because the documents show it's an IRA LLC. So
Yep.
it's tax exempt, deferred from your own taxes. It's all back end work, but when you are working on that investment, it is an LLC that will be signing on that document.
I can do that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question for you. So how easy is it to exit an LLC checkbook IRA?
Yeah. So with the exit strategy of a checkbook controlled account, I would say there's a few different options you would have. So if you're meaning exit in the sense of, it was a fix and flip project that you did that it came out, you made a bunch of money on it, and now you don't want to be as aggressive. You maybe just want to go into something like a money market or a mutual fund or something like that. One, you would have the option to just open an LLC brokerage account, keep the funds all where they are, connect it to that business checking account, and then you can transfer those funds back and forth that route. That would leave the door open for you to do more real estate deals in the future. However, if you're just totally done at that point and you want to close out of everything, you would sell the property, send the funds back to us here at IRA Financial. We would help you dissolve that LLC entity. And then at that point, it would be your choice to take that distribution of those IRA funds or transfer them out to another custodian for a brokerage type of account. So, I mean, you do have many different options. So if you were looking to take that distribution, you would sell out of everything, close it all down, and then we would issue you that 1099-R form that Casper mentioned for that distribution. Or if you would like to transfer it out, you would just contact that other custodian. They would send us a transfer request, and then we would send the funds over there.
Yeah, and then just to bounce off this, there's a question that aligns perfectly with what you just said.
Perfect.
With a checkbook IRA, can funds be held in a savings account and moved to the checking account when needed? Just wondering how to earn more interest when not investing in the project.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so when you're opening all of these accounts at the bank, it really is, again, a case-by-case basis of, what bank you choose, what relationship you have with that bank, and what accounts it would open for you. Because at the end of the day, these are just standard business accounts. The bank's treating them just like any other standard business account. So if you can get some sort of interest-bearing account, from the bank, all the more power to you. If you can't, then hopefully once your account balance grows, then they'll be able to grant you some interest on that account. But there's nothing necessarily saying that you can't, open those accounts. I would say it's just more of a bank specific topic to kind of cover. And Casper and I are always available as well. So if we, need to hop on the phone with a bank, kind of talk through that account opening process, that's exactly what we're here for. Like we said, making that process as smooth as possible for you.
Yep, and really the bank has to be open in the LLC's name, right? So we're here to also provide you the EIN, the articles, and any supporting document. Usually it is the operating agreement for a supporting document, but the main two are just the EIN and articles when you go in there and open like a brokerage account, a bank account, checking, interest, it's all there, and we provide those documents for you. Okay, so we have a question here. I think I heard you say that you have a flat fee structure. What is the annual maintenance fee of the account? Yeah, so when Jack was saying flat fee, that's the nice benefit working with us. When you go and have multiple assets, you do a lot of transactions. Other custodians, they will have an asset processing fee, a valuation fee, or it just remains flat. It's $495 a year, roughly $500 a year, and everything is included. Everything we've been saying on the, give us a call. We're here to give you guidance, consultation, all the reporting, 1099-Rs, 5498s. that's all included, and that's the nice part. You don't have to worry about, am I getting charged $50 for a processing fee and then a $25, wire return fee, and then all these other things. We have everything built in a fully transparent fee schedule that we can absolutely send over to you. But that's the nice part. It is fully, flat. Easiest way to put it. All right, Jack. Where does the money sit if not all the funds in the account are used for the real estate investment?
Yeah. So ultimately, that is going to depend on your account structure. So if it's a custodial controlled account, those leftover funds would be sitting with us here at IRA Financial. If you want the exact specifics, the bank that we use is Capital One, so they would be held in a Capital One checking account. If you're using the LLC structure, they would just be in your LLC's checking account. So from there, it would be your choice either to, invest those spare funds into another investment, put them in something like that savings account or a money market type of account until they're going to be needed for that real estate investment. Or if you wanted to just take a distribution of those funds, you could do that as well. But ultimately, they would just be sitting in cash awaiting the next investment opportunity. And then it would be your decision on necessarily what we should act on with those funds.
Yep, that's right. Next question here. Does UDFI apply to property held in solo 401k? So when we were going over that unrelated business income tax and the, debt finance income, solo 401ks are exempt. There is an IRS code that, it just doesn't apply to the solo 401k. So if you are self-employed and, you can take advantage of a solo 401k, I always say absolutely do so. I'm sure we'll go over, the 401k plans we offer our next webinar, but in an IRA that UBIT would apply, solo 401k is very nice for that exemption. It's a huge, huge benefit there. Okay, so we have a few more minutes here. Let's get through a few more questions. Jack, so how about this one? For multi-member LLC, can the property management keep the accounting part of the business and just release distributions to the members of the LLC?
For multi-member LLC, can the property management keep the accounting part of the business and just release distributions to? So I guess this would depend if you're meaning like you as an individual doing the accounting can take that and just the rest be distributions to the business. In that case, it would be no, because you can't have that self-benefiting from that IRA or the IRA LLC investing. If you're saying that you're going to have like a property management company that does the accounting, then you would be paying, and then they pay the LLC distributions after all that accounting's done. You could certainly do that. And I would say that actually a large majority of my clients that do use that LLC use some sort of property management company, just because it makes it easier to pay one contractor than it does to pay a multitude of contractors. Granted, with the LLC structure, it'd be much easier to pay multiple contractors than it would be with the custodial controlled account. But property management companies are very frequently seen used when investing into real estate with self-directed IRAs.
Yep, and then we're here for that multi-member to show the ownership on the documents, to show this IRA owns, let's say 50%, this IRA owns 50%, and it will follow pro rata, meaning it will be split based on that ownership of the LLC. So we're also here to help you on that and make sure we guide you through that properly. And we have time for one last question. Do you assist with non-recourse lending? Yes, so we do assist with that. We have several partners we can refer you to. We're not a bank ourselves, so we don't have a loan for you, but we can guide you in the direction of like, hey, these, lenders have worked in the past. You can check them out. We have about 15 or so, I believe, last I checked, that we can send over to you on the list. So definitely reach out to us and we can provide that over to you. So yeah, I mean, thank you all for the questions. It's really nice to hear from you guys and just be able to assist directly. We will be probably sending out our phone and email. You can give us a call right now if you'd like. It's 1-800-472-1043. That is our phone number here, extension 201 for sales, or new accounts. And we'll be able to really dive in deeper into some of these questions that we might have not gotten to, or maybe you have a scenario. I think we'll also be sending out our personal information as well on an email template, so you can give us a contact directly. Yeah.
Perfect. And I would just say thank you all for your time. Taking an hour out of your day is not something that everyone wants to do all the time. We really hope that you did get something beneficial out of this webinar. unlocking real estate and unlocking your IRA to invest into what you need to invest into to retire confidently.
It's exciting.
It's something that
Yeah.
Casper and I are very passionate about.
Yes.
So please give us a call if you have any interest in this and would like to walk through your case-by-case situation with us. We're here to help out.
Absolutely. All right. Those are great closing statements. So I think that'll be good. Thank you, everyone.